So I started out and found something for the background to view, and the reason being is there's something about people who do things that many other people don't do or go to certain extremes, whether that be snowboarding or Hanaud climbing a mountain. There's just something about what's inside of them that makes you watch their story. And, for some people, maybe it is climbing a mountain and snowboarding. I guess for other people, it could be the excuses they make about a mountain in their life that they don't climb, or even once they get to the top, maybe some people don't go down the mountain or different things like that. So I just put this in the background to sort of inspire the nature of people just going all out, even beyond what they understand their limits to be. They put in the work to be prepared for it, but they're even out stretching themselves and enjoying things in a level that I think is something that could be admired by almost all, and I think that's why it attracts people.
I also think that the nature of these types of extreme sports, as they get labeled, I think part of the reason why there's such a growing, and has been for maybe 2 decades now, growing popularity with it is just it pushes you in a different way than traditional competitive sports do. You can make it competitive, and it can be, all of these things can be competitive, and that can be fun to watch too. But I think there's just such a an individual sort of kind of aspect to this that some of the other sports don't as much give you anymore. You don't see people as much playing, hey, let's do a pickup game of baseball or football, or basketball maybe a little bit more than most. But I think these types of sports, it allows for you to have that when you're done that day, snowboarding, surfing, hiking, whatever it is. There's that sort of, not just that physical awareness, but that mental reflection you get during those processes that it just doesn't seem. I mean, I've played all the competitive sports out there, and it almost became that is so formulated and all about the results, that this is a little bit more about the process, like the journey of the experience, not just of snowboarding, but learning to snowboard. I tried it one time, and it was fun. I would do it again. I wouldn't say that I even remotely got it down to a point where, because we only went for one day.
Snow part.
Yeah, I got the falling part down really well, but it's just a matter of trying to do something that pushes yourself, and I think that's what these sports do, that the other ones do as well, but just it's so formulated now. Everything's about competition, and you either win or you lose, and I don't discount the value of that. It's just, I think that's what the appeal of this is now. It gives you an alternative to just, that's the only sort of athletic experience previous, at least in any public way. So.
And I think on the human being level, I don't think that even though we see them do things that maybe seem like they're really pushing it every day, and some people do and some people don't, but I don't think their human experience is that much different. Like those moments could be exciting, but everybody still has something that causes them fear that's stopping. There's still something that these guys aren't doing, that something's not doing every day. Now, whether it's 50 steps down the line because they took 49 steps, or it's somebody who hasn't taken their first, either way, as a human being, I think it's important that we all know that this is just still the human condition, still puts limits on itself that are unnecessary, and still would make reasons why things would or wouldn't work that haven't even been attempted. So, I mean, the good news about this is, these are mostly kids who ski for fun for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, chasing their friends down the slope, playing little games, get a little higher than they expected one time. Next time they grab a rail. It's not somebody just going down and,
It's funny, so, I just remembered I had a dream this week of skateboarding. And I really haven't been on it. And I'm talking about skateboarding, not just grabbing a board from Dave's collection and ride in front of his house. I'm talking about, doing tricks and stuff like that, which I never really was able to do when I actually did skateboard, at least not to any real quality level. And I was completely, I had no problems. Didn't fall. I've never really had a dream like that, but I think it was sort of tapping into sort of my need and desire to be connected and doing something, like this. And it was probably triggered by last week and what we did last week. And that's sort of in the moment, let's make a decision. Let's go do something we haven't done before. Let's push ourselves to feel uncomfortable. And I think that's at least, whether it's actual or not, I think these sports tend to your point about the fear, push yourself in a way that you're not trained to do this. You don't grow up saying, I'm going to go to the top of a mountain. You have to decide to start to learn that, or at least try to experience that. So it's, I just think it's an interesting coincidence. But it taps into last week, and last week got a lot of positive feedback about the video that you did with our experience about jumping in the ocean. But, and that was all inspired by wanting to push yourself into a different place, an uncomfortable place. And, I don't even think I've completely processed everything from last week, because we did it, we moved on. You went and you did your things. I had some things to do that weekend, then I was right into work, and I don't really think that it's completely sunk in for me. Because somebody had asked me would I do it again, and I couldn't answer the question, which tells me that I really haven't processed it to say yes or no. I would probably, the closer if somebody asked me on Monday, I probably would have said no. The farther away from it I get, the more I'd say yes, because I know that, okay, it's just a thing that you can do.
Yeah.
So since I'm not as connected to actually remembering what the experience was, it becomes easier to say yes.
I think it's so interesting how we make things what we want to make them. Like, if you could do anything to find motivation to change your trajectory of everything you do, then you'll find that thing and change the trajectory. But at the same time, one thing, one moment, one action can't do much unless you do something with it. I remember so many moments meeting with somewhere, going here, going that, this is going to be the big thing that changes this, or the course that changes that. No one was bigger or smaller than the next as time goes by. And it's, really, they're just logs for the fire, and you decide which ones you put on, you decide how much you put on, and, you also decide if you're going to put water on it, and smoke it out.
Sure.
And we're just, really, just really an accumulation, of our most consistent thoughts and actions.
Yeah, for sure. It's before we hit record, right? We were talking about consistency. We really, neither one of us, we've been busy with the holiday season, all that stuff, a lot of things going on, work, everything still exists all week long. And we really didn't come in this week. We've now done Facebook Live, and now we're talking about other things, and you're working on other material, things like that. And we really didn't come in here today with anything. We just came in to maintain consistency, to make sure we stay disciplined, to, we don't necessarily always need to have what's the topic of the day, and we can just, it's all about consistency. I think that, one of the things that some of the people we follow, right, it's about their consistency and their commitment. And sometimes it is sort of the same topic. Maybe they did that 6 months ago, whether they're conscious of it or not, because it's maybe presented in a different way, or the theme is similar, but it's over a specific detail differently. But it's not really about that. It's about the consistency.
Yeah. I've even heard a podcaster say, it wasn't until like the second or third or whatever year it was that I even knew how to interview people. Because like when I look back at how I used to interview people, it was like nothing to now. But you can't know that without interviewing people and saying, oh, maybe I should have said something there. Maybe I should have helped them expand on that. Maybe that would have been a good way to tie in something else. And so, those are the things that come along with showing up.
Yeah, it really ties back into some of the conversations we've had about, you know, doing, right? Just doing things. A lot of the questions that I've been getting, because I've been verbalizing more and more as we do more and more of these, that we're doing them, right? Just that step alone is changed, because when we first started just toying around with the little 15-20 minute, recordings, I really didn't share them with a lot of people. It was a very small group. I didn't publicly tell people, and now I find myself telling people all the time. Mm-hmm. So just that alone is a change.
And we want to keep freedom. I mean, we have so many other areas of our life that we have to think,
mm-hmm.
and we have to plan, and we have to organize. And this is a place to unpack all that.
Yeah, I thought about it this morning. I was like, this is borderline therapy at times.
Yeah.
Just to kind of let the week go and unload. Even if you're not talking about the week, it's just an avenue to kind of let a comfortable space where you can kind of just say whatever is on your mind. And but I've found the reaction is interesting. I don't know if you're getting similar reactions, but the number of people that just continue to ask why in this very dumbfounded way, like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you spending, I guess collectively 2-3 hours a week, depending on, setup and, whatever. Well, like last week was probably collectively like 3 hours. Today won't be as long, but why are we doing that? And I don't really even know. It is a great question, and I know what my motivation is, but for one of the first times in probably the last 10 or 15 years, I don't really have a target on the board that I'm saying I know specifically what I want this to be long term. I think at some point it will present itself what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be no goal, but I don't know what that is at this time. And but it's
well, if you shoot, you're going to hit something, even if it's the ground.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's, I mean, for me, I don't think, if I were to put more effort into this without a plan, but with, passion and energy, I'd have more success than a perfect plan with no action. Mm-hmm. So this is already, even if this makes the other 20 hours of my day, better, it's already doing its job.
Right.
It's, I could be, and I do get fed by others, and, that obviously leads to thoughts and different things. And I'm sure a lot of the stuff I'm even saying isn't my own thoughts. But at least I'm taking the time, and I think I don't know why I'm on this human being thing. I think as human beings that it all boils down to the same stuff. We all are either frustrated or want to be a little better. We're all happy, or some balance in between all that. And and I think it's important, because I'm just hearing this a lot lately, to know that all that stuff is okay. I just heard that, like, suicide, and it's shortened lifespan based off opioids and antidepressants and suicide. And I heard somebody say that everybody has this idea that they're always supposed to be happy,
right,
or something, and nobody likes to feel sad, but you hear some of these other guys say that some of their greatest change came out of their sadness or pain places, or their disappointment, or whatever the case may be. I think it's really a raw power that's, I wouldn't say greater than love, but behind love, it's a raw power that, if harnessed, does amazing things. And without having that power in your life, you just go into, just normal. It just becomes normal to you, whatever your state is. And then there's no motivation to do anything, and that's fine as long as you don't want anything.
Sure. Yeah, I will say that I'm finding myself through this process already. Some of it I think is because I want to come in and not be, I want to be positive, right? I want to make sure that I'm feeling positive, whether I'm projecting positive or not is a different thing, but the topic's positive. The evaluation, the review, the next steps. I'll say, okay, how do I turn this into something that's positive? I think just because of the thinking about that coming in, trying to stay that way during the dialogue, and then what I take away from it, and what are the next things that I do after this. I'm finding that I'm seeing that more in every day, and I feel like it's also that I'm attracting it more and more. I'm finding myself less fearful over little things and less anxious over these things. I'm not saying that it could be anything. For me, it's right now it's this that's helping me to change that mindset. This is sort of a tool that's allowing for me to start to change a little bit. I can be very cynical about things. To the point of that it's can be perceived as, even though I don't perceive it as negative, I can see that other people see it as negative. But nonetheless, I'm finding that starting to go away in my day to day, which is good. I need to find a better balance of that, and not necessarily look for the negative, but always see the negative, or always see that somebody has somebody's got an angle, and part of that is what I do for a living. I'm always trying to be guarded against, somebody trying to take advantage and try to out negotiate me on something. And, so there's always this sort of, preparation for a battle. And so I'm always, even when somebody comes to me and says, and I had a conversation with somebody who's very positive in our organization, but almost too much so at times. And I hung up the phone in my call with him this week, and it can be frustrating, but I realized, maybe he's the counterbalance to me. And maybe ultimately after the conversation we say, okay, what is the solution to this problem? And that balance is more important than my viewpoint or his viewpoint or whatever the case may be. And it's just, you need to have that mix, right? Mm-hmm. So it's helping me in that mindset shift.
When I think about the mix, even if it's between two people in communication, I also was thinking about the mix between, being on and being off.
Sure.
Right? So there's being on and all these things that are supposedly winding you up.
Sure.
And then there's being off, which is completely doing nothing and escaping. Mm-hmm. And I think, the third environment that this creates, and I think anybody who communicates well has this environment, is the ability to unpack, see a different perspective, understand what truly was happening. If something did frustrate you, understand, whatever needs to happen in a week or a day for you to reassess. And I know, for me, when I get to talk to Jen, sometimes I'll talk to her about something and it'll just be me. I had built something up, right? I was either on or off. Mm-hmm. So something was just building up, which leads into a rant, and then everybody gets hurt with a rant.
Right.
There's really not much coming out of a rant. And, for somebody else to say what somebody else was feeling or what somebody else was thinking, it'd be nice if we did that on our own, but sometimes it's nice to have those conversations, which is not on and not off, but it's that middle ground of unpacking, reassessing, reshaping, replastering where the cracks are, and moving forward. And I had a great example of that with Mackenzie. So like in the mornings, if she's running late, it could get into this, we told you to get ready, how many times do I have to tell you to brush your teeth, all that, which ends up leading to an ultimate frustration of going into school. Mm-hmm. And, for whatever reason, I decided to be different, and the interaction, even though it was the same type of morning with not brushing the teeth and running late, after our interaction, which was just completely different because issues can be addressed at another time, but this was the time that she was last going to see me. So right. Why not make that the most secure, confident she could ever be about our relationship, our love, our sure. family, and herself. And so I poured that into her, and she was skipping into school, right. And so just to watch her skipping, really just shows the part that we play sometimes,
sure.
And what good would anything else come out of it anyway?
Sure.
If you can't hold your tongue or have self-control, you're not going to get more done.
Right.
If it gets to that point, you didn't handle business in the first place, because things very rarely get to a point that require that kind of intensity suddenly.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many parts to that I think you could unpack. One is that when you think about, we can sit back and get frustrated at the, for me it can be my children or work or things like that as well. And you always can blame the person sitting there listening to you as being, you don't get it, you don't understand what I'm saying. But the reality is, at least what I personally believe, is that it's incumbent on the communicator to make sure that they're communicating to the audience. In this case, it was one person or 10 people or 100 people, in a way that you can, hopefully they can react and respond in the way that they understand what your message is. With a bigger group, it's harder because there's so many different variables in that room. But ultimately, it is incumbent on the communicator to recognize, and I see it all the time where, well, I did my part and they just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you didn't communicate it in a way that they would understand, whether it's maybe what motivates them is different than what you think motivates them, and what you decided to tell them they should be doing, versus what if you find out what they're about,
mm-hmm.
and understand them and get to know them, then your communication can be the same message but just tweaked
mm-hmm.
a little bit differently to get
with
them
zero
to respond.
expectation of response. Right. But I still think that doesn't let us off the hook of the process.
100%.
Right.
I think it's all about the process. I think that it becomes, and that
because people go both ways, right?
Yeah.
No matter what I do, X, Y, Z,
mm-hmm.
or you keep trying and you expect the person to change because now I've done this, this, and this, which probably that log is eventually going to cause a blaze, because look at all the ways you went out of your way and they still don't get it. But that, once again, that middle ground is, just like a baby doesn't stop till they're walking. You just, some things we just don't have that long game. We're always about,
and then we, again, get so attached to, well, I delivered this message, even if they get it, now I expect these results. And I expect them to use that information in a certain way, and all the things we get attached to. And we've all been guilty of it, and I would be, lying if I said that I still don't have those issues, but I am conscious enough that when I'm in those situations, and I have an opportunity to work with younger, newer professionals that are working their way, through their career, one of the things I now say consistently, although I don't necessarily always apply it because you get wrapped up in the day-to-day, but when I'm having those teaching moments, those mentoring moments, I find myself saying specifically, my job is to give you this information. I'm not going to be attached with what you do with this information. Don't feel obligated to do anything with this information.
Mm-hmm.
You do with you let it apply to you and your life in whatever way it needs to. Maybe not even at all. Maybe you take all this information and throw it right in the garbage. That's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
I can only share with you my experiences, what I've learned from that, and then you do with it with whatever you want. And detaching myself, and it also creates this nice space for dialogue, so that that particular individual doesn't feel obligated to do anything with it,
mm-hmm.
right? Which now makes me they're a little bit more open to listening, because I don't feel like I have to do something. They said to do step 1, 2, 3, and I have to do it that way. This is what I've done. This is what's worked for me. Use it that way or not. Find your own 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, and C, or it doesn't matter what you're doing. Just being open to listening to those experiences, and then doing with whatever you think is best for your life and your career, whatever the case may be. So it's a different. I don't find a lot of people take that approach as much. It's very much, this is what I've learned. You need to follow it this way. I've gotten results that way, so everyone will get results that way. That tends to be what you see a lot of people try to.
It's got to be frustrating. I mean, because if you know people, you know that, very few are going to take all, let alone even a little of what any kind of conversation you say. And I mean, if you're not sure about that, just think about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you're right. How many times somebody teaching you something and you're not open to it? And
But what's neat about human beings is you can tell them something. They don't have to do anything that you say, but they're still different.
Mm-hmm.
And they still could be different. They're still like somehow, even if they do the same thing, they're going to do it with more vigor.
Right.
Or more intent. You know, whatever's going to happen, every interaction has some type of reaction.
Yeah.
Even if it's a non-action. You know, it could just be more of who you are, or, you know, who knows what that even means.
So you said you were like, and you do this thing, which I think is really cool, that you find these words or these themes you have, and
Mm-hmm.
you really play them
Pound
out.
them.
You
I
pound
pound them.
them completely
Day and night.
into the point where I'm sure Jen's nauseous of hearing the word or the phrase or whatever it is that you're doing. You really sort of work that all the way through. So what you said you're right now on Human, what sort of triggered that, and what has that experience been like over the last week or so?
I think it just was basically just about, it just started now with thinking about human nature, but I mean, most of this week was just about pondering, because sometimes it'll be a word, but then sometimes it'll be connected in different things I do, and then I'll be seeing it or experiencing it in different ways. And so this week was a lack of gratitude week. You know, everything was, why aren't things better? Why isn't there more? And it just really started to have this negative tumbling effect on how I thought, how I saw things. Even the thoughts into going into things didn't have a positive tone. And, as much as we want to say that we're, not attached to certain things and we have peace and we have happiness, if you're going to spend a majority of your life at work, you care about money.
Well, and I think also when you look around and you talk to most people, this time of the year, you're inundated with buy, all this stuff. It's almost impossible to not get sucked into that thinking. And when we were younger, that's all you thought. That's all you were taught,
Yeah.
So, and it still happens today. So it's really just, you're so inundated by all of that it's really hard to, be immune to it.
Yeah. And you really do have to, do whatever you do to change that, especially when you don't feel like it, because that negativity, when you start doing something positive, it's like, oh, that's something positive, everything's changed. You do it in spite of how you feel, and there'll even be an upwelling of negative to try to stop it from happening.
Yep.
Like, if I'm writing something or doing something, who am I to write this? It's not a good idea. What's going to happen with that? Why are you wasting your time?
Yep.
And then, but what I did, just sat down and kept writing, And,
well, I think that even though when we earlier was talking about the questions from people asking why are we doing this, part of me gets frustrated with, there's a part of this is that question's a good question. At some point I'm going to have to figure out specifically why. So that's exactly what we were talking about before. But there's also that whole question why is really a negative undertone. Like, why are you doing this? And that's just, again, another example of just people and things. And they're not malicious. I know that they're not trying to pull me down. That's not what they're trying to do when they ask the question. It's just, again, that's what the way they're programmed, and way I think most people are programmed, and we're all we're not immune to it. And to your point,
yeah, I think the highs and lows are all the same.
Yeah,
it's just my high and low comes with doing this or not doing this, or different things. Just like their high or low would be like, what job they're in or whatever else. I mean, it's just all the same.
And it really does take discipline, practice, focus, and commitment to decide, okay, you spend X number of hours at work and you're going to be exposed to tons and tons of people that are just never going to move past those fears that they have, and there's nothing you can do about that, no matter what you try to pass along to them.
I think that ties into something that I didn't realize I was going through this week. I had two concepts that actually go together. I've been working on microscope and telescope. Microscope's what you do each day. Telescope is looking from a distance and seeing where that's leading and all different things. And I think you have to have microscope energy and love in your day with people, but you really have to have a telescope perspective with them, because you don't know what part of the process you're in for them. So to blow up the microscope, you're never going to see that star,
right? Because
they're not going to be in your telescope.
Yep, for sure.
You're just going to blow them right out of the universe. So it's just very important to realize that them doing what they do is perfect for the plan that they're on. No matter what part I played in it, even while my plan's being worked out within their plan, and all these things are happening at the same time. And if you can love them in the microscope, whether you can watch them from a distance, whether you become part of their life, whether you end up helping them, that you have a chance at that. But too much of a microscope focus. I don't know if you've. And here's another cool thing. I don't know if you ever used a microscope before. Would you ever get so close that you break the glass?
Oh, I never have. I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So like you're zooming in, things are nice and clear, but you just go a little too far.
Yep.
So when you do that with the microscope, sometimes you break the sample.
Sure.
And then
I
infect it.
It's interesting that you struggled with gratitude this week, because for one, you I needed a little bit of, hey, give me some positive thoughts and prayers out there, because I'm running into a pretty challenging week, just knowing what was in front of me, and so I was anxious about that, and in those specific moments, and in preparation of what I'm about to have to do, I try to get my mind right, and I was struggling with getting my mind right. So I appreciate that what you sent me via text message. So I appreciate that. And then, but what's interesting about the gratitude part was I was sitting sitting in the car and about to come in, and looking around, the yard's decorated for the holidays and everything, and I think that the fence was up last week, but not the decoration. So I was just looking at it and thinking about, oh my goodness, you must be so happy now that you've got this place. So my perspective was how happy you must be with all of that experience, and to hear that you struggled through that,
I think it's how happy I should be.
Well, but yeah, for sure. But we all do it, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality, is that I guess I'm passing along to you, is that, you should be grateful, and I know you should be, you know that. And then other people are happy for you,
right?
And really proud to see that you're getting what you want, because as much as you individually might say, oh, I might want this, or I might want that, and that would be nicer, think about what you're creating for your daughter, right? A safe space, a place that she's going to remember for the rest of her life,
one thing I am grateful for is that, and it doesn't happen all the way, but I have how when there's a fire in a building, they have a containment plan and an exit strategy. I'm happy that I don't sit in this place and blame the world around me and get negative and start reading and listening to negative people and doing all these things. What I did was I did the exact opposite. This is a gratitude issue.
Right.
It's a normal feeling for a human being, but it's not. This isn't going to last forever. The sooner I start working on getting out of this, the better chance I have to get out of it. Stopped eating sugar, stopped eating grains. I did the nutrition thing, made sure I was exercising, made sure I was grateful for everything around, went around serving people more whether I felt like it or not, was more compassionate to people, apologized to people. I was a little short with. I did everything I did to contain that fire,
right,
and put love on it. And you get out of it.
Yeah, you work your way out of it for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma or challenge that you're faced. But you and I have had this conversation about some of the things that I've been working on, outside of work and really outside of this space. And for me, everything you just talked about is the first step of being able to kind of get where you want to go in life, and that is you have to be self-aware. The fact that you're able to recognize, you're having a gratitude issue, and then you have over time built that containment plan. When you first dealt with gratitude issues, you didn't have a containment plan, and then you say, "Oh, I use this tool," and that was the only tool for first, but it wasn't complete. Then another time you had it, and you added another layer, and so forth. So, and you'll still add to it, right? It's not going to ever really be done, the containment plan, but it all still starts from you have to be self-aware, and then you also have to be willing to do something with that information, right? It's one thing to be self-aware and then just sort of say, well, this is who I am, and everyone can, just deal with me because that's who I am. And for the most part, that's going to be real anyway. The real sort of growth comes from, okay, and the example I use all the time is I am not a patient person, right? And there's many situations from being a manager at work to being a husband to, father, so forth, that I need to have patience. And there are moments that I say, okay, I'm not patient. I'm feeling that urge to be impatient. What's my containment plan to deal with that, part of myself? How then do I react in this situation to inject some patience? But just because I'm patient in a moment will never make me a patient person. You could be temporarily something other than what you want to be for the moment, it's right for my spouse, for my wife, it's right for my kids, it's right for my job, right? So, but when it's all done, I go right back to being an impatient person, right?
Well,
and,
I mean,
and
I
that's
think
that's
when
a
you talk
self-awareness
about
thing.
emotions, there's a line that everybody has, right? So it's not like you could take certain things off the table because there's no way to.
Right. But again, it goes back to you over time, you learned how to, when the negative swelled up, you learned how to manage it. And sometimes you don't. And sometimes you're like, you realize you went 3 days and you didn't contain that fire at all.
Of course, yeah.
And even sometimes where you've been so emotional, I know I have, and we all have, I want to burn it down.
Right, exactly.
Let's add more gas on this fire and see what happens.
Yeah.
And we all know that that's not healthy, and we have plenty of examples of why that isn't, but we're human. We're dealing with things, we're processing things, and again, it goes back to, okay, this self-awareness part comes from, what are you going to do about it, and how are you going to grow, and how are you going to create those containment plans, and how are you going to be okay if you put gas on the fire? Are you going to beat yourself up forever because you should have dealt with that in day one, but you let 3 days go, and day two you try to burn the whole house down or whatever? Okay, well, at some point you have to forgive yourself. You have to apologize to the people that may have been affected by that. You have to be willing to go through that whole experience and grow from it, so that way you don't let it go as far as you can. That's all you're really trying to do. That's all you're really trying to do, is say, how can I improve my life? How can I improve the things around me to be able to get what it is that you want out of life? Because you're it's not about things, it's about what's important to you, which again goes into the sort of the next part of the process for me in my mind, which is,
so how about
which is just to say to yourself, what are those things that are important to me, and how do I eliminate the noise that is not important to me, right? So yeah, so it's been a good week, for sure. I appreciate
have any focus for next week, or
I think that I'm really, really looking forward to tonight. Tonight will be the beginning of sort of the holiday season for us, because we've just been busy, and Kieran just came back from school last night, so we finally got everybody together, and so we really, even though it's kind of late in the game, I know relative to the holiday season, but we're kind of getting it started tonight, and that'll put us on the trajectory. I've got a few little work things I am excited about this week, because I will be able to deliver to somebody a job offer, and right before the holiday season. That's always nice, to be able to make that call and say, hey, we want to offer you this job. So that's going to be exciting. So yeah, I mean, my focus is just to continue to, you know, do everything I can every day. Even yesterday was a great example of I woke up and we had a long week, and I spent most of my day on the phone in a car because I was driving from New York to Philly, and but it ended up being one of the most productive days of the week. So my focus will really just be don't sit there and say, okay, when Friday's over, I go on a 10-day vacation and let's just get through Friday. What do I need to do every day to make sure this is just as productive as a week, and next Friday is as productive as yesterday, or this is as productive of a week as any other week, no matter what week it is, just because it happens to be going into the Christmas holidays and New Year's, as well as the end of a year. There's a lot of sort of culmination. It's real easy to just look at that finish line and just say, okay, I'm going to wane a little bit at the end. How do I run through the tape, at the end at the finish line, and just keep, even though I may or may not win the race, I'm going to win. I'm going to be the last person that runs. I'm going to run way through that tape.
And I think you're probably capable of this as well. I'm almost the opposite. I almost get fanatical on these weeks because I want to get 3 times as much done as I usually get, so that time is already made up for before I take it off.
Well, and
that works against me. I was always that way. Like whether it was whatever it was, anytime that something comes to an end, I want, and I know that any kind of time is coming up or anything. Yep. I want to try the zero regret things.
Sure.
But it could work again. I mean, it can get hairy.
Well, I think the other thing too is that, and so you have that approach, whereas for me, I've always felt, and again, I know that we started talking about these extreme sports and how it's not as I mean, it can be competitive, but it's not the same as traditional sports. But because I grew up on traditional sports, everything for me is about competition. Everything I do is, okay, how can I be better than the next person? What can I be doing that they're not doing? And what's interesting is a week like this week, most people will do exactly what I don't want to do, which is, hey, my last day's Friday. Around Wednesday, I start to go from 5th to 4th to 3rd, as I downshift for the holidays.
I think we got cookies this week.
Right, exactly. And I'm going to make a lot of fluff visits and just say hello. And there's value to that. Don't get me wrong. There's some great things to do. But, if I'm on Friday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon still working on, a project that is critical or maybe not, but who's already shut it down at 3 in the afternoon on Friday because I'm off. Yeah. Nobody else is working. The office is closed. All of those things. And if I can be working till 6 o'clock on Friday,
and that's where so many people have found their magic. I forget who the different people are, but if people used to make the phone call when phone calls were popular at 5, this guy made them from 5 to 7.
Right.
It was always that person who wasn't doing, and what an incredible time to leave, a great feeling in somebody, especially your clients. Yeah. I mean, and it's so easy nowadays, with gifts, with family things, whatever they celebrate, sending a wreath to their house. I mean, there's just so many little opportunities at this time of the year that could bring such a warm feeling to somebody that it could be better than all the visits you've ever made to them over business the whole year long. And it's just thinking that way. I mean, you get a thought, whether it's been a thought that's been in the world or not, or it was just, you're fortunate enough that it was just given to you.
Right.
And be a fool and go do it.
You may have inspired that question may have inspired an idea that I think I will do on Friday. So I'll report back on what I did and but to be accountable, I'm going to pick up the phone and call a lot of people directly on Friday, even if I don't have anything else to do that day, just to thank them for whether they're a direct employee or a partner of ours in business, to thank them for another great year and looking forward to next year, and best to you and your family. And so I'll leave that out there, so I have to be accountable for that.
Well, what's neat is, I was thinking of the account side, and you're thinking of the staff side, which is interesting about this.
I was both, actually.
Yeah. But on the staff side, you know, they may be a little quiet because everybody else from there is already away
Yep.
or doing something. So what better time for them to answer their phone? You know, like it's those little moments that are available, but you have to look for them.
Sure.
But then they make all the difference.
Sure. What about you? What's your focus for the week?
Focus for the week. Just being present, and you know, not just for the work aspect. Is, you know, at this time when there's some days off, and you know, Mackenzie's excited about the season, to just put down the phone and know that you know, you don't have to always be doing something for things to be happening. You
Right.
know, if you're doing the right thing, you're collectively feeding into, you know, something that, you know, for me, God, that has the power to take care of everything.
Sure.
And I don't always have to be, you know, the one, you know, making the sun come up.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, it's a great thing to be able to know that you need to be doing something to help somebody else. Because all I heard you say, even though you didn't say it, what I was hearing you say is sort of how can I continue to serve and improve on that service. And this becomes the time of the year when I think the people closest to you get thought of the most, right? And you know, how can I appreciate my wife and my family and my friends and the people around me and the people at work that deserve it. So because the people closest to you, you know, they deserve it. And there's just we're all guilty of this, I would say. It's very rare that there's people out there that aren't guilty of this, which is we don't really show it enough. You know, we try to show it in gifts, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what are the little things, the little actions, the little words, the little gestures that really kind of go the longest of the ways, you know? So, so I'm looking forward to it. So thanks again for today.
Yeah. I don't know if you're ready for it, but I asked Jen, maybe you could ask Jessica, we were going to do one called Building the Perfect Husband.
Okay.
And I told her it would be an opportunity for me to sit and listen.
Right.
And just ask questions.
Sure.
And let them talk. So we'll see if we can encourage them to do that.
That'd be fun. Sounds good.
I guess that would be mostly for women to watch.
Yeah, we might need a full council there, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.